Hello and welcome to our web chat where we are continuing our series on corporate treasury operations. We are joined again by Bas Rebel, Senior Director at PwC Corporate Treasury Solutions, Canada.
Hello, Jack. Happy to be with you again.
Excellent. Bas has been a driver behind PwC's Treasury Benchmarking initiative since 2013, which is the backbone of their biannual Treasury Benchmark survey. Survey in 2019 was another comprehensive analysis, this time of 230 corporate treasurers and finance directors, with conclusions on 6 key areas. In this web chat, we will be looking at the workforce of the future, and in particular, the skills that will be needed.
If there's one thing certain in life, it is that nothing stays the same. Our success as individuals and as well as human race depends on how we embrace that change. Office life has changed a lot in the past decade, over the past decades, and might change even more so in the near future. Last week, Jack, we discussed the reality of digitization and its possibilities and the urgency to embrace new technologies that can automate workflows, bring data together, and visualize information in support of decision making. This idea of change and possibilities inspired the title for this year's survey, It Takes Two to Tango. Now, having said that, technology is merely a tool. It is up to us to bring that to life, so to speak. To phrase it differently, it is us, not the technology, that drives the future. And hence I see this theme of workforce of the future as the lead partner in our metaphorical dance.
Absolutely. I put up this slide slightly early, but it's the background to the survey results we're going to be looking at, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. And I think before we jump into the future, it would be good to have a little bit of a background on what today's facts are. Ignoring some of the outliers, on the median treasury function spans about 10 FTE. And that's well below the average that we have measured of 16 FTE. That implies that there are a lot of smaller treasurers and a few bigger outliers. Now, on average, the 58% of these treasury FTEs are working at head office, and the other ones are split across regional and local treasury. And a few companies incorporate shared services and IT units within the treasury function. Another remarkable finding is that 10% of the organizations do not have any treasury FTE at all.
Not at all?
Not at all. And yet they do cash and risk management. So apparently they lump it in with other functions.
Oh, right.
Another observation from the data is that clearly centralized treasury is a dominant model. And yet there are some notable exceptions of decentralized treasury where head office treasury is only less than 10% of the overall treasury FTE.
So how does the future treasurer look like? What does he or she bring to the party?
Well, if you look at this graph, it's obvious that the workforce of the future has to know what treasury is. Without a good functional understanding, there can be no sensible discussion with CFOs or the business. But there is also a clear hierarchy in the soft skills within the top 5 competences that we see on this slide.
But which is most important?
Well, Jack, that depends very much on who you're asking the question. Just like in earlier versions of this survey, most respondents are treasury professionals, and this graph is somewhat skewed. Is somewhat skewed to their opinion. You might conclude from this that the treasurer of the future is a specialist with some extras or nice to haves in soft skills. But what this graph does not show us is the discrepancy between the responses from treasurers and non-treasurers, i.e. the CFOs and controllers. CFOs value strategic thinking, experience outside treasury, management skills and people skills far higher than treasury specific functional knowledge.
That's really important, isn't it?
It is important because it tells you that in order to be successful, you need to have much more than functional treasury knowledge. That may not necessarily be new, but it is very telltale that this comes clear from this graph.
Yeah, and so if you ask what organizations look for when hiring new treasury staff, this graph is very telling.
Yes, indeed. And I think this is where it gets really interesting. And bear in mind, this graph is also skewed to the responses of treasurers. This graph seems to suggest that respondents are looking for safe bets. They are hiring based on a proven track record for a job that is similar to what has been done before. But please also note how low IT knowledge is rated as a hiring criterion. This is all the more remarkable when we think about our discussion of last week, as IT skills being a major roadblock to leveraging new technology. But when we would break down these numbers by type of respondent, it becomes clear that CFOs rank project management, consultancies, and soft skills significantly higher than treasury respondents. The same happens to potential beyond the job. These are yet other indicators that CFO seems to appreciate the treasurer to be a change agent with a broader mindset.
And what do you take away overall from this?
Well, I guess that in order to be successful in the future, one has to be an entrepreneur. You have to be outgoing and engage with the business. You have to be that champion for cash flow and risk within your organization.
And I think that's absolutely fundamentally right. So what would be your closing comment here?
Well, when I reflect on all the information that we gathered, maybe the sobering conclusion could be that the future workforce might not be all that different from today. Being successful as a treasurer and you want to move up the food chain, you should take successful peers for inspiration. Successful in the future probably is built on the same ingredients as it is today. You need to be an entrepreneur. You need to embrace change. You have to push an agenda. And above all, you have to be able to articulate the treasury value proposition so that you can claim the right size in budget and resources that you need for discovering and managing adequately the cash flow and exposures of your organization.
Because that was one of the major log jams that you found in the previous, or you didn't find, but we talked about it in the previous web chat, where getting the right budget, the appropriate budget, was the key to an awful lot of this.
Correct. How you interact on a political and diplomatic way probably are the most important skills that you can have on top of the foundation of a good treasury knowledge.
Absolutely vital, Bas. Very important. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.